Castlevania 2 Simon's Quest. This game sucks. Following the success of Castlevania on the NES, Konami, understandably, wanted to make a sequel. Hitting American shelves in December 1988, a year and 8 months after the original, there was quite a bit of excitement rolling around. What NES owners ended up getting, however, is arguably the system's most infamous mixed bag. Some people like it, some people hate it, but pretty much everyone is willing to agree that it's an overambitious game with an immense amount of flaws. Now, seeing as how I had yet to even exist yet in the late 1980s, I suppose I'm a bit of an outsider here, so why don't we pop it in and see what all the hubbub is about.
Why did he pick up the controller when he already had one?
Well, first impressions, it seems rather okay. The colors are vibrant and the music is more than decent. It controls more or less identically to the original, but okay, there's people, and they tell you stuff, and hearts are a currency? Yeah, Castlevania 2 is wildly different from the first in plenty of ways. We'll get to that. As for the story, it's fairly simple. In 1691, Simon Belmont puts an end to Count Dracula. But before he dies, he places a curse on Simon that will kill him if Dracula was not revived. 7 years later, in 1698, Dracula's minions start doing some bad shit. And Simon goes out to murder the forces of evil once more, and rid himself of his curse. There's only one problem. To revive Dracula, Simon must gather 5 parts of Dracula's body. But all of said parts have been whisked away to various manors throughout the land. With all of Dracula's bits, Simon returns to the ruins of Castle Dracula, summons the Count's ghost, and finishes him off for good. Or so you'd think. All the story really does is give you the fetch quest the entire game surrounds. There's things you need to collect, now go get them. But I promise you, you won't get very far at all before... the day-to-night transitions. For the time, a revolutionary back-of-the-box feature. But now, it's more of a hassle than it was worth. And the gameplay suffers from this. Problem number 2, level design. Now, look, when I say level design, it's more than likely that you think I'm going to talk about the manners, but no. It's the level design of the whole game. But, for the sake of it, let's start off with the manners. First off, the enemy placement is very simple. Nothing intense in the least. It's like after designing the 6 levels of the first game, they had no idea what to do, made some simple placeholder levels, and then kept them in. That, and some of this is just complete garbage. Platforms you can fall through, areas with absolutely nothing, untelegraphed fake walls, and most don't even have a boss to fight. Then there's this choppy platforming. Come on. Get up there. Get up there! It's like no one play tested these parts past the point of seeing if it were actually playable. Now, as for the overworld, it's a bit of a mess. Remember how I said this game was overambitious? Yeah, well, here's why. The world itself is way too open-ended, and even stranger, nothing feels coherent. It doesn't make sense. 1 minute, you're in a town minding your own business, and the next thing you know, you're in a dark cave with eyeballs. It doesn't really help that mapping the game out has proven to be more difficult than you'd think. For example, here's one from Nintendo Power. Yes, I'm just as confused as you are. Since nothing in the game itself is really named, it can be hard to figure out exactly where you are in relation to where you need to be, let alone how to get there. Eventually, we got around to this map from the CastlevaniaDungeon.net. Thank you very much. Yes, it is a bit confusing, but at least it tells you the names of things, what they look like in the game, and what items are where. But personally, I like this map from Ego Raptor. perfectly summarizes the entire game, if you ask me. Then there's Dracula's castle. What even is this? It lasts like 2 minutes and there's nothing. That whole placeholder joke is starting to hold water. There's other problems. For example, the NPCs, and really just the text in general in this game. There's towns and people to talk to, but unfortunately this game suffers from what I like to call poor translation-itis. The original Japanese text was, for the most part, all in riddles. And since the game was translated very poorly, it's hard to tell what they were trying to get across. As an example, the game does tell you to kneel at this cliff while holding the red crystal. But instead of being something like, kneel at the cliff with a red crystal, the game tells you to wait for a soul with a red crystal on Deborah Cliff. Well, okay. Still a bit misleading, but okay. So I guess that means Aaron lied to me.
Hit your head on the top of the... What the fuck?
Okay, second, the economy. As mentioned earlier, the hearts are your currency, even though some items will still use them as ammo. Now, in tandem, and this will make sense in a moment, I promise, if you die, you respawn more or less where you died, which, okay, sure, it's a tad more forgiving, I get that. But if you lose all your lives, you have to continue. And if you do, you lose all of your hearts. Now, this has proven to be incredibly frustrating. I couldn't tell you how it felt to die in the manors and not have enough money to buy an oak stake, which you need to throw at an orb to get a part of Dracula that's in there. What, was touching the orb like in the last game just not good enough anymore? The final thing I wanted to touch on in this part are the bosses. There's only 3 of them. Yes, 3. The first game had twice that, but at least you got one at the end of every stage. Here, it almost feels like they're an afterthought. It doesn't help that they're easy as well. Remember how I had to give up near the end of the first game because I couldn't beat the Grim Reaper? Well, look how hard he is here. Man, that was some boss. To be fair, the first time through, I did fight him, but look at this. Pathetic doesn't even properly describe it. Second boss is a mask. Also easy. And then there's Dracula, the final boss. Now, I realize I didn't beat the first game, let alone even get to Dracula. But for those that did, remember how hard the fight was? Only being able to get in one hit on him at a time, and then he suddenly goes into his final form and is even harder? Well, Dracula at the end of this game is easy as piss. And like that, it's over. In conclusion, yeah, this game really does just suck. Sure, it had the look and the sound of Castlevania, but it didn't have the feel. It wasn't as fun. It wasn't as satisfying. There's nothing really that special about it. It's slow, it's long, and it's not very good. But hey, it more or less got better with the sequels, and Konami must have gotten better at making games by now, right? Oh yeah!